Hello, and welcome back to The Path to Happiness. I'm your host, Dr. Tyler Hendricks. In our last session, we learned that since the fall took place as a couple, spiritually and physically, it is restored by a couple, spiritually and physically, and it is bestowed through the holy marriage blessing. Now, how do we prepare for this? Can I just sign up? Actually, there are simple, principled steps we can take. In this session, we will introduce the principles of restoration, which are principles of preparation to receive the Messiah, returning Jesus, true parents, through the holy marriage blessing, which is the path to happiness. The providence of restoration is part 2 of the unification principle. And it is the same thing as the providence of recreation, which attempts to recover and fulfill the original purpose of creation. We will learn about the fundamental principle of biblical history, starting with Genesis, going all the way to Revelation. We will be able to resolve many biblical puzzles. Just as God has created the entire creation according to certain principles of creation, God's principles of restoration also have created and guided human history. We can see them come into play right after the fall of the first ancestors. I will begin by sharing how the principle works to cut off our relationship with Satan and build our relationship with God, based upon which we can make a foundation to receive the Messiah, the true parents. We can achieve salvation through leading lives according to such principles. And here's one key term: restoration through indemnity. First, since we are under Satan's realm, we have to separate from Satan and subjugate Satan. This means to connect ourselves to God and overcome selfishness and evil in our relationships. We're not expecting perfection here, and that's why we use the word conditions. Conditions symbolize, they look like the ideal, even though we know we're still not ideal. We call them conditions of indemnity. Indemnity means that you have a debt that you can't pay, and your creditor forgives your debt based upon paying a conditional amount. So conditions of indemnity are a great blessing. But still, as we will see, it takes a lot of effort. Now, because Adam and Eve fell at the top of the growth stage, we need to make these conditions in a way that correlates to getting to the top of the growth stage, at which point we can receive the true parents through the holy marriage blessing, be reborn, and remove the claim of the original sin. After removing original sin, we are restored to the position that Adam and Eve enjoyed just before the fall. At that point, we have to follow the Messiah, continue to grow, and reach the position of having completed the purpose of creation. This is the principle of restoration. Now let's delve a little deeper. We first talk about the position that we held before the fall. With no fall, we would have achieved perfection and become one in heart with God. But our fall into a love relationship with Satan means that we made a bond with Satan. And that's why immediately after the fall, Adam and Eve faced God and Satan from a position in the middle, a midway position. Following this, all their descendants came to stand in a midway position. If we do evil, we will go more to Satan's side. If we do good, we go more to God's side. It's completely our decision and our responsibility. Separating from Satan and returning to the position where we can face God is the first priority. So what do we do to separate from Satan? We formed a love relationship with Satan. So we have to set up a condition of a love relationship with God that he can accept. We are separated from Satan according to the conditions of love and faith that we make. Good conditions lead us toward God. But then we make bad conditions, it goes back toward Satan. So what kind of good conditions of indemnity can separate us from Satan? Now, if something in its original state has been damaged, as we are, in order to restore that thing to its original state, you have to assess the damage. For example, to recover a tarnished reputation, we change our behavior. To restore demoted status, we work harder. To cure an illness, we have to diagnose it, and we rest, and we medicate. Likewise, to restore our proper position before God and before each other, we have to set up the proper conditions to bring God's forgiving grace. And this is what we call restoration through indemnity. The conditions to fulfill this are conditions of indemnity. And the providence that restores us to the position before the fall through setting conditions of indemnity is called the providence of restoration through indemnity. And that is the story of human history. Now, there are three variations on these conditions of indemnity: the equal, lesser, and greater. Conditions of equal indemnity mean restoring something by setting up conditions of indemnity of the same value. For example, when Moses fasted for 40 days atop Mount Sinai and received the 10 Commandments from God, and then he went down the mountain and he broke them in anger, he had to set the condition to indemnify that by fasting for another 40 days, equal amount, and receive the 10 Commandments once again. It talks about this in Exodus 21. Then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. This is what we mean by an equal condition of indemnity. The second kind is setting conditions of lesser indemnity, which means to restore something back to its original state through something of a value that is less than the value of the original. For example, whenever some debtor has a large debt, the creditor, out of the goodness of his heart, could ask for only a small amount to be repaid. And by doing so, the debtor could clear the entire debt. By setting the small condition of indemnity, for example, in Christianity, of believing in redemption through the cross, we can receive a great benefit, the same benefit as salvation as Jesus purchased for us when he died on the cross. Or by setting the condition of indemnity of being baptized with water, we are reborn by Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Or by sharing in the Holy Communion with bread and wine, one can obtain the priceless benefit of engrafting to the body of Christ. Those are conditions of lesser indemnity. Third, setting a condition of greater indemnity. That comes if there's a failure in a condition of lesser indemnity. And then a condition greater than that is given in order to indemnify both the original object of the condition plus the failed attempt. And this explains a lot in the Bible. For example, one time Abraham failed to divide birds for an offering. To restore this, he had to offer greater indemnity. He had to offer his own son. Another example, the Israelites in Moses' time failed in a period of 40 days spying the land of Canaan. And as a result, they had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Our last introductory point covers the question of who must set up such conditions of indemnity. The principle of creation teaches that we must fulfill our portion of responsibility to realize God's purpose of creation. The first ancestors did not fulfill their portion of responsibility, and instead they fell from God's hands, God's dominion, to Satan's dominion. It was by their choice. Therefore, it is our portion of responsibility to free ourselves from Satan's dominion and restore God's dominion over ourselves and the world. So it is our responsibility to set the necessary conditions of indemnity. It's up to us. So we better understand how to set up these conditions. And that's the topic of our next session. Thanks for listening, and may God bless you.